Hello everyone, this is Jimmy and welcome to episode 35 of FTB Interactions. To start us off today, I want to issue a correction over a couple statements I made yesterday. So, these Naquadria reactors, when they're burning Naquadria, I think previously I said they consume like 2.5 to 3 ingots a day. Well, if they're running at full power, which these are not, in fact these are not running at the moment, but if they are running at full output, they actually consume they consume exactly 15 ingots a day. So the fuel consumption is a bit higher than I expected, but 60 ingots a day compared to my 4,000 dust means, I have 100 days worth of stock, not mentioning the already molten stuff I have on hand. So I wanted to correct that really quick. Another thing is the settings I had on my fluid suppliers here. It needs to be on partial mode with min mode none. Otherwise, if you leave it on the normal settings, which is partial mode off, min mode 1 bucket, it will not send it fluids until it's empty, and it'll send in multiples of a full bucket. However, because the reactor consumes fuel in multiples of, I think it was 64 millibuckets maybe, it'll never actually completely empty its internal buffer. So it's important that you have partial mode, yes, min mode none. That way, it'll keep these stocked up to exactly 1 bucket. Moving on, let's try to make Naquadria-doped monocrystalline silicon boules today. These cut into wafers, so each silicon boule, by the way, cuts into a whole stack of wafers. What a good deal. And these wafers can be used to make the wafers we had previously made with glowstone dope boules, except they have double the yield. However, they can also make SOC and ASOC wafers, so system on chip and advanced system on chip. And these provide much easier ways to make the lower tier circuits. So we can make tier 1 circuits without any of the other intermediates with SOCs, and not the type of sock you wear on your foot. So tier 1, tier 2 chips, even like these are tier 3 or HV. And then I think to go for the next couple tiers, there's the advanced system on chip, which can make quantum and I guess just quantum. So up to EV circuits can be made much simpler by using these. Therefore, we have to make, we already have Naquadria ingots. We have to make blocks of silicon and argon. Blocks of silicon are a little bit, it's not like difficult or anything, but it's just that the silicon ingot has to be made in a blast furnace as well. So we need a blast furnace to make silicon, a way to turn them into blocks. Argon's a little bit tricky. What's the best way to do it? I guess we can get it from gassy eggs, give 20 millibuckets per, or air. But then we have to freeze air. What are our other options? Or we can replicator it. I had the thought that maybe we could get it from noble gases, but apparently noble gases centrifuge into, so noble gases, carbon dioxide, decidedly not a noble gas. Helium, I guess technically that is a noble gas, Methane, not a noble gas. Deuterium, not a noble gas. So out of 34 buckets of noble gases, we get 9 buckets of helium as the only noble gas. I feel like I'm being lied to here. Making argon from these gassy enriched eggs turns out to be quite simple. The fact that this is EV, an EV centrifuge processes the egg in a single tick makes it very fast. So I have 4 chickens producing eggs. This one separator could handle probably quadruple that if needed, but it just produces argon and other stuff, and the other stuff I throw away. I don't think there's any good reason to keep nitrogen, oxygen, or noble gases. But if I need them later, I can just stop throwing them away. So, it uses very little energy, takes very little time, and produces argon for us. 2 blast furnaces, one making silicon. Threshold is set at 1,000. Silicon dust comes from our clay electrolyzer. And then over here, because I needed the silicon in block form, I provide it as ingots to an extruder, which turns them into blocks, which then supplies them to our input bus here, which I should have a threshold of 64 set. So I'm not quite sure how the extra 3 got in there, but anyways, takes it surprisingly little time, actually. This only takes 75 seconds each, which is refreshing considering that the basic silicon bowl takes like 15 minutes each. So yeah, 75 seconds is a lot less than a minute. Anyways, to set the threshold on this, I have to take, I think our first one just finished. So grab the silicon bowl, send it to our cutting machine here. This one. So capacity card. And now that should cut it. Looks like that does take a little while. Hurry up. And then I can just nab one of these wafers and use that to set the threshold. So the quad doped wafer will set a threshold of 1,000. So this will run until we have 1,000 once I plug it in. We can upgrade this recipe, which is making 8 printed silicon from a glowstone wafer, to making 16 with a Dequata wafer. Just means it takes, actually I should double check, make sure that recipe takes the same voltage tier. Let's see. Here we go. This takes EV. Is the previous one, no, the previous one was actually HV. So if it's, what tier is that laser engraver? It's HV, so actually I can't do this. I need an EV laser engraver to do that. All right, well let's, we'll need an EV laser, we'll need a few EV laser engravers, I think, because the making, yeah, these two recipes are also both made in EV laser engravers. So let's get a few EV laser engravers. On second thought, because the laser engraver with the Skystone lens is mostly for handling on-demand tasks, I want it to be fast. So I decided to put it on my IV line with an IV laser engraver. And since I was making one of them IV, I may as well make them all IV. So the laser engravers etching our SOC and ASOC wafers are also IV. However, they appear to be slightly short of power. So I guess I need a few more Nequata reactors. I think it's a little short because, yeah, these these generators are also helping augment our EV power. Good news is I already pre-crafted 12 of these. But anyways, what we'll do with these is this first one keeps a stack of SOC wafers on hand. Second one keeps a stack of ASOC wafers on hand, and then we can cut those on demand because the cutting speed, at least I think the cutting speed is fast. 15 seconds at MV, but I do it at HV or maybe even IV. So yeah, I'll cut them on demand and then craft them into circuits as needed. So let's, I don't know, may as well put these all down, I guess. Aha, and then I just need to put a bunch of fluid suppliers. With that, our peak power production has gone up a lot. Just these 16 produce up to 16 amps of IV, which is, if I step it up twice, it's 1 amp of CPM, so 131,000 EU a tick. Why is this one red? I think that's just a render bug. These settings are all right. So I'm going to assume that's just a render bug. The machine is running just fine. All right, anyways, now we just have to upgrade or update the recipe in our assemblers to use the system on chips instead of all the various components that are going to them right now. So this recipe, I think Quantum has an upgrade too. And I actually never encoded the rest. Oh no, here we go, Nano. Oh, I think that, and I never encoded the recipe for a tier 1 processor because I had enough left over from my earlier batch crafting. We get to go from this recipe, which uses, you know, a bunch of other sub-crafted components, to this one, which is much simpler. Now it needs a IV soldering alloy assembler or better, but I'm pretty sure we have that. Yeah, an IV soldering alloy assembler. Aha! So this doesn't actually give us any new functionality per se, but it does let us make things cheaper and significantly faster too. Because we are cutting out a lot of the intermediate steps, it basically just has to do the one assembler, I guess a cutting step and then an assembler step, and it's done. So these processors should be rolling in any second now. Any second now. And why aren't these crafting? Quantum processor. Let's head over to the machine I put them in. They should be in this machine. They are. Why are they not crafting? Whoopsies. The one for quantum processors that use advanced system on chips is apparently an LUV recipe. So this being not a LUV assembler, can't do it yet. You know what? Let's see if we can make an LUV assembly real quick though. Let's cancel that. I'll have to put the old recipe back for now. But yeah, let's see if we can put together a LUV assembler. And then we can just power it with a transformer for the time being. So LUV casings are made of chrome. That we can do. Vanadium gallium for their wires to turn them into hulls. That we can do. And then for the assembler, I guess we just need to, well, we can make LUV circuits, right? That's a second IV circuit. Apparently it's not called an assembler. What is it? Assembling machine. Right, we can make these crystal assemblies. So it's just, I need niobium, titanium in small volumes, and the LUV motor. Ooh, we need an assembly line. All right, then. I guess that'll be what we do next. An assembly line. This is fun. I love assembly lines. So assembly lines are a multi-block. They have, I think, as few as 5 slices and as many as, there we go, 16. Each slice lets you add another item input to it. And the recipes have, up to 16 input slots. Yeah, all right, let's build it. And then they also take fluid inputs. Generally speaking, it looks like there's only a handful of different fluids used. It's lubricant plus something for most of these recipes. I've never seen a recipe use so many circuits before. There's 7 circuits of the 9 slots. We can make these. We can even directly craft these, right? But it's going to take a lot of circuits to make our assembly line. In fact, I should take a look and... Oops, that's not the assembly line. We should make our assembly line the maximum, because it's very easy to upgrade the voltage tier on it, we should make it long enough to accommodate every recipe. So what is the longest recipe in this pack? I've seen a few 9s. There's a 10, there's an 11. Looks like 11. So we need a 11 slice assembly line. Unsurprisingly, crafting all these assembly casings is taking forever because it takes a lot of circuits. But because we produce a lot of IV power now, I can overclock this. I can apparently not overclock that more than twice. Really? Where's all this energy going? These are all producing. I guess you just aren't taking in energy fast enough, huh? That is weird. All my other machines are perfectly happy being time-in-a-bottled. Why aren't you? Wait. These aren't connected? Am I crazy? My generators aren't actually connected to the wire. So where's this power that's powering these coming from? I'm right. Did I do something really stupid? Are these still in step up mode? They are, aren't they? So actually, all my power that's powering my IV machines, none of it's coming from my generators. Why do the wires not connect? Do they only connect to the sides? Let's try that. Alright, I found that if I shift right click the back here, I can set I guess that's the energy output side. I don't know what the default output side is, but apparently these generators don't output at the back like other generators do. But like this, now these should be producing energy. So I guess until now, since I've set these up, these have not produced a single ounce of power. But now, there we go, I can accelerate you quite a bit, which makes you run faster. Alright, and then I should actually make these into step-down transformers. So, where's my rubber mallet? Just hit them. Wait, they were in transforming down. If they're in transforming down, then how are these getting any power at all? I don't understand. Transforming down means they're taking IV and outputting EV, right? Like I'm not crazy, am I? Transforming up means, yeah. I have no clue. I legitimately do not know how these were getting power before, any power at all, when these generators were not connected. You know what? I'm not going to question it. If it works, it works. Anyways, I think with that, our assembly line casings, machine casings, and line casings are done. Aha! Alright, so let's start building. The assembly line is built out as slices, kind of like, I guess, slices of bread. So the first slice looks like this. There's one input bus per slice, and that the number of slices determines the number of input buses you get. So since I want 11 input buses, let's just place all those down. And then you need one slice at the end that has an output bus as well. So let's put all those there. Optionally, you can point your input buses down. The first slice has the actual assembling machine controller block up front, or the assembly line controller block, and then I think everyone behind it has a assembly line casing in the middle. The rest of the slices just follow behind the first slice, somewhat as expected. That's how slices work. However, you also need some number of fluid and energy inputs. Energy inputs go on top. They can replace any of the solid steel machine casings on top. You can have, I suppose, as few as one, and as many as you have slices. And the fluid inputs go on the bottom here, replacing any of these solid steel machine casings. I'm not 100% sure if you get to replace the first one. I guess let's test and find out. This should form. Okay, it doesn't form. Maybe it can't be the first one. Let's try that. Uh-oh, the fact that it's not forming is bad news. Maybe the energy input can't be the first one either? No. What did I build wrong? Thankfully, you can shift right click the assembly line block and it'll tell you what's wrong. What actually happened here is I think my assembly line block is one block too low. So this is supposed to be up there, and this block has to be a casing. A assembly line casing. Alright, now will you form? There we go. Now it's formed into a LUV assembly line because I have two IV energy inputs, right? Each one can take up to 2 amps in. So 4 amps of IV is LUV. All right. Now let's, well, I'm going to need more than one fluid input. So I think I have 8 on me. 8's probably more than we need, but looks like you are allowed to put fluid inputs in the first slice. Good to know. But yeah, there's, if we look at the assembly line recipes, most of them use lubricant, solder, one of the rubbers, or distilled water. I guess that's regular water. Well, in total, maybe there are 8 different fluids then. I don't know. Whatever, I'm not going to stress it. The input buses on the assembly line must be ULV, or single slot input buses. So if you want to, or you have to make sure that when you insert your items, you round them in a way that you get the entire recipe actually placed into the assembly line. Easiest way to do that is just to turn on blocking mode on the ME interface, providing items to a buffer chest. Guess a chest can't open with an interface above it like that, can it? You can still withdraw from it, so that's fine. Maybe I'll replace it with some openable interface, I guess, like can GregTech chests? Well, GregTech chests don't respect blocking mode, do they? At least they didn't before. To be fancy, let's use a shulker box. So the items go into here, and then each input bus has a different priority. So we start at priority 0 and work our way down each time. And my extract here explicitly has a full stack of extraction speed upgrades, so it withdraws a full stack of items at a time. I think we're ready to test it. As for actually providing fluids, I have a fluid interface providing fluids, and then they're being routed each into a different input hatch that's filtered. So this fourth one has nothing in it yet, but I'm sure I'll figure out what fluid has to go there soon enough. So let's start with the motor. We'll start with the LUV motor and see if we can request those. Hold up, we're not quite ready for that even. This takes a bunch of high-speed steel components. So we have to make Hssg first, and then we need ways to craft all these subcomponents. If memory serves me right, these rounds... Oh no, they don't take forever to make. Okay, I guess maybe it was just an OmniFactory thing. I thought that rounds took forever to make. I mean, I guess maybe they do. They overclock very poorly, being ULV recipes, but at 5 seconds base time. Whatever, I'm not going to worry about it until we try it out and it takes forever. But first we have to make Hssg, which I believe is an alloy of tungsten steel, chrome, vanadium, and molybdenum. Making Hssg Dust is a little bit more difficult because I don't want to do it on demand, where I have to be able to provide it to a blast furnace through an export bus or an interface without a crafting card. So I just have one pulverizer pulverizing tungsten steel dust or tungsten steel ingots into tungsten steel dust. Honestly, a chest is probably a larger buffer than I need, but I probably could have gone with just the 3 stacks in the pulverizer, but whatever, I've already set it up this way. We have plenty of tungsten steel anyways. Then a interface takes these 4 items and provides them to a crafter, which stocks up to 4 stacks of it, and I just need to put a storage bus on here, partition U, whoopsies, only for HSSG, let's see, extract only, and do not report. There we go. So then I can just plug all this in, and then I just need a blast furnace to cook this dust into actual ingots. Then for the next couple of tiers of high-speed steel, we have to. So well, here let's start with HSSG dust. Some of it we can turn into ingots. Some of it we have to turn into HSSG, or HSSE, and HSSS dust. Expanding on what we just built, I added 2 more crafters, one to make HSSE and one to make HSSS. I suppose if I wanted, I could have crammed all these into a single crafter because they have 4 output slots. But whatever, this keeps about 4 stacks of each dust as buffer, as output buffer. And then I just need a blast furnace to process each. Now I think these take pretty high temperatures, so HSSG can be done in tungsten steel, but yeah, this requires a higher tier, and this does as well, right? I'll just make 3 more superconducting blast furnaces to process them. I love the look of blast furnaces stacked side by side. They just look so industrial. Anyways, 2 of my 3 are running. The third one isn't for some reason. Let's see. HSSS is no fluid, 5400. That's less than 9000. Why isn't this running? Hey, you, right? Less than 9001, and 128 is less than 4096. What's the matter? Oh, haha, my wire comes 1 short. Turns out if you don't plug your machine in, it doesn't run. Who'd have thought, eh? There we go. Alright, now once these run for a little bit, I can configure their stop conditions and plug in the level emitters. I think HSSG is used the most, so I have its threshold set higher at 1000, whereas the other 2 are used. I mean, I think this is just for like the next tier. So HSSE is for ZPM stuff, uses this. So like the HSSE rod is in ZPM stuff, which naturally the higher tier you go, the less machines of that tier you tend to make. And then HSSS, I would assume then, by extension, is for UV machines. Or not. Maybe it's not even used for anything. Probably should have looked that up. It's not used for anything, I don't have to make this, do I? Yeah, it doesn't look like HSSS is used for anything with the exception of tools. So, and as far as tool materials go, I could get a 3000 durability axe like this, or I can make it out of Terra Steel and get 25,000. So it's not even a useful tool material. I just set the threshold pretty low at 100. Who knows? Maybe I overlooked something. And it'll be good to have it on hand because it's extremely slow. If I do end up needing it later, I don't want to end up waiting for it. Alright, anyways, that makes HSSG, among other things, so we should be able to actually encode our recipes now for the next tier motors and things. At this point, our recipes still only take 9 inputs, at least 9 item inputs, so we don't have to do any clever hacks to convince Applied Energistics to send it more than 9 stacks of items. Later, though, when maybe, let's see, some of these motors? No, I definitely saw, though, some of these assembly line recipes take more than 9 inputs. And when we get there, we have to start getting clever. Although then again, I mean, like, sure, the fusion computer takes 10 inputs, but do we have to fully automate the fusion computer? How many fusion computers are we going to request throughout our playthrough? So maybe we won't end up doing any of those hacks to to trick applied energistics. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's necessary. That's convenient. At least not for the assembly line. Maybe elsewhere. Anyways, I've got a bunch of recipes to encode, and then we can hopefully request an electric motor. Turns out there's one more material we're missing, and that's yttrium barium cuprate. That was one of the things we could have used to make superconductors, but I ended up going down a different route. Turns out we need this for other... I think I did niobium titanium for my superconductors, which I have quite a bit of niobium titanium. But yeah, turns out we still need YBC. Unfortunately, it looks like there's no clever tricks to get barium dust directly. The fact that the JEI for barium does not have a tab for byproducts, kind of like, say, vanadium, right? It has this ore byproducts list. That means you can get it as a byproduct from ore processing. Barium does not, so that's not possible. What we have to do then is make barite dust, which is processed from barite ore. Among barite, quartzite, or what's it called? Or Certus quartz. But given that I straight up have barite ore, let's process that. It also cannot be densified, unfortunately, so we'll just put it through the Great Hammerathon. And then we have to electrolyze our barite. However, this is a 6-to-1 process. 6 pieces of barite dust produces 1 piece of barium, which is, I don't know, not a great ratio, I guess, but hey, you take what you can get, right? So let's store that. I'm continuing to put more stuff into this chest, just because this chest can hold a lot more items than it is right now, and that will be our barium source. I think this also produces a fluid. Yeah, so let's just void that. You may be noticing a trend here. Another crafter takes the yttrium, copper, and barium and makes yttrium barium cuprate dust, and then we just need a blast furnace to cook this stuff. So I think this is at a low enough temperature that we can use our tungsten steel coils. Indeed it is. The tungsten steel coils are, I don't know, they're marginally easier to make than the superconductor ones, so when possible, may as well use them. The quest book seems to think that the pronunciation here is yttrium, but I'm pretty sure it's either yttrium or yttrium. The Y might just make an I sound. In any event, I'm not going to stress the pronunciation too much. If you're actually interested in the process that you make yttrium barium cuprate superconductors, there's a very cool YouTube video on it from NioRed, who made it very recently. Super interesting stuff if you're into, I don't know, chemistry, science. But we're doing it a different way by just blasting it very hot, I guess. So that produces our ingots, and now we should be able to make the motor. Electric motor. I guess I still have to tell it how to make the ingots into wires. Haha! Finally, we're good to go. Start. So this process might take a little while. I'm kind of curious how long those rounds take. I definitely recall them being a bottleneck in processing these items in OmniFactory. I think this is my lathe. Well, it's done, so I guess it's not that bad. Alright, looks like the bottleneck in practice is going to be the wires? Nope, I guess we're good for everything there. There were no single bottleneck. So anyways, that puts everything into this shulker box, which gets distributed, and haha, it's running. We are making motors. So this is, it's an LUV recipe, so we needed the 2 input hatches to pull it off, and it's crafted. The very last slice here is our output bus, so when it's done, it should come into here, and then our item conduit should pull it all the way back into the interface. There it is, and there it goes. Aha! And crafting done? Crafting done. Nice. So there's motors. Now if I want to make the assembler, I think I also need to turn these into conveyors and arms and whatnot. Getting there one step at a time. Now we are short chrome ingots and still need quite a bit more HSSG. So I'm going to set up a blast furnace for chrome, and I think what I might do is I'll bump our HSSG blast furnace from EV up to IV. So that's this one, right? I can just put another energy input hatch on the bottom and turn it to IV. Yeah. All that takes is replacing this heat-proof casing with a energy input and running cables to it. There we go. And now IB blast furnace. So this is significantly faster, 2.8 times as fast. I had network power blink out briefly on my wireless terminal here, and I realized something. I no longer need these access points. So by getting rid of them, I can dramatically reduce the amount of energy our ME system takes. So there's one there, one here, and I think there's one more on the space station that we can get rid of. Because these probably account for, I should have checked before I took them down, but I'm willing to guess over half of the energy consumption of our ME system. Of course, because we have the creative one now, we're no longer tied to being in range of those things. So getting rid of them is a-okay. The only thing left to make this assembler is Hssg ingots, and 100 of them. So waiting on blast furnaces sucks, but you can make it suck a little bit less with a time in a bottle. So I'm going to add a lot more transformers here to produce, or to turn more of our Naquata power into EV, so I can time in a bottle our blast furnace a lot. That's up to 32 more amps of EV power. And it's this blast furnace, if I recall, right? Yeah, this is the one that's already at IB. That's apparently too many clicks of the time in a bottle. Well, more transformers it is, I guess. I upgraded to 16 transformers, and yet when I do the 5th tick acceleration, it's still not getting enough power. So I think the bottleneck I'm running into might be how much energy per tick the energy input hatch is willing to take or something. I don't know. It's definitely not a limitation of how much energy our transformers can provide, because all these transformers at the top here aren't even working, right? It's only the ones at the bottom that are working. So whatever. I'm just going to say four acceleration ticks is good enough, and I'll accelerate it until we get our the 100-ish ingots we needed for that assembler. I'm pretty sure the reason the 5th acceleration is failing is because of the energy input hatch. At 5 acceleration ticks, that's 32 times acceleration. Each energy input hatch is trying to consume 64 amps of... Wait, 32 times acceleration... So no, the two together are trying to consume 64 amps. So each one is trying to consume 32 amps of EV power. However, 32 amps of EV is bigger than its internal energy capacity, which is what's causing it to fall short. So 4 accelerations, I mean, it's still doing like 1 every 2 seconds, right? That's not bad. I'm kind of surprised this is only 8,000 bytes. I would have expected it to be, a bit more complicated than that. But yeah, lots of steps. Not that much raw ingredients, surprisingly. Besides, I mean, like 300 copper, whatever. 8 chrome, 161 Hssg, I guess is the only thing that's really difficult here. Anyways, fire. Now, I do expect this will take a fair amount of time because it has a lot of assembly line steps. And each assembly line step probably takes about 30 seconds to a minute of crafting. So if I had to guess, 82 thinks it'll take 48 seconds. I know that's wrong. I expect it'll take closer to maybe 5 minutes. While we wait on that craft, let's make the transformer that we need to power the LUV machines. So this transformer takes power integrated circuits, which are made from the wafers we made earlier today and a sapphire or other blue colored lens. So that's an assembler. I meant to make a laser engraver. Whoops. Let's try that again. Oh no, I did make a laser engraver. I just took the wrong machine out of my ME system. Alright, so laser engraver with sapphire lens. We're also going to need LUV cables. The lossless LUV cable is TerraSteel, which, I mean, I guess we can make. The other technically not lossless cables are, let's see, HSSG, niobium, titanium, vanadium, gallium, or yttrium, barium cuprate. Of these, the loss is so small it practically doesn't matter. But you lose 2 out of 32,000 per block. So over a course of 100 blocks, you've lost 200 or sub 1%. That said, I have I have less terrasteel than I thought. Yeah, let's not use terrasteel cable then. I'll use, I don't know, I'll pick one of the the other ones, whichever one I have the most ingots of. Let's put down the transformers. I'm pretty sure, let's see, so right now they're in step down. I want them in step up. No, I hope that freeze here isn't the result of everything. It looks like it was just a harmless lag spike. So let's set them both to transforming up, plug them in, stellar alloy cable on this side, and I have vanadium gallium cable. So it is still 4 amps, but it's not technically lossless, although the loss is so low I don't care. I've now officially run out of faces on the top side of my ME controller, so while I could attach to these 2 faces, if I put P2P interfaces on these faces, I can't expand my controller afterwards. So I'm just going to start using the bottom side. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess I can use 4, maybe 5. I think I only need 2 Spectre coils to power it. So yeah, I can use about 5, maybe 6 faces on the bottom side of the controller before it's time to expand it. In the time we were doing all those other things, our assembly machine is done. It took about 10 minutes total to craft, so my initial estimate of 5 minutes seemed to have been a little bit optimistic. With the LUV assembler online, we can move all of these recipes over to there, because why not process things in the faster machine, right? I'll leave the crafter here, that one doesn't really matter, but all the circuits come here. And the quantum processor we can now upgrade to use the advanced system on chip recipe because we have a sufficiently high tier assembler. Let's try crafting these quantum processors again. So earlier when we tried, it didn't work because our machine was of insufficient tier, but now they're crafting, and they craft darned quick. Aha! I love it. Let's check one thing. This is the machine that we also make our first tier wetware processors in. How close are we to be able to manufacture these? All we need is a neural processor unit, right? Everything else here we can make. So, oh boy. Alright, I guess we're not quite there yet. Let's wrap things up here for today with our first LUV tier machine. I guess it's second technically, right? Because the assembly line is also LUV. We'll come back next time, put this assembly machine to more use, and start making wetware processors. That promises to be fun, and that'll lead into fusion computers because that's gated by having the wetware assemblies. Alrighty, well, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you look forward to the next one. Take care, bye-bye.